Okay, Phil. In a previous interview with The Big Issue in 2012, you expressed your belief that the best acting is reacting. What does reacting entail for you?
Well, I mean, you want to convince everybody that what is happening, what is being filmed, is happening for the first time. Mm-hmm. And so it's difficult when you're an actor because, you set it up and you rehearse it and you have to do it again and again and again and again. So the skill is in minting it afresh, is somehow wiping the slate clean. Here we are, we're sitting here, he's saying these things to him, and you react. And especially on film, because if you think it, the camera will see it. You don't need to demonstrate. Mm-hmm. The worst kind of reacting is, all you have to do is, flicker of doubt comes across your eyes. The camera will get it. Trust it, especially when it's like that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to move. So you're not trying, not to do too much. You're not trying to do anything. You're just putting yourself in the character's shoes, doing what the character would do. And that's a tremendously intimate scene where they're, this is a man who believes he's almost as clever as Sherlock. He believes he's his match. And there's Sherlock unzipping him and showing him to himself and getting everything right. And he has tremendous admiration for it. He says when he gets him in the cab, Sherlock Holmes. I've got Sherlock Holmes in my cab. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to kill him. Or at least persuade him to kill himself. So the reacting, it's the business of acting.
Yeah.
It's the doing something as if for the first time. You don't have to do it the same. You don't have to do it different. You just have to do it. And if you're relaxed, if you're in that state where, it's like jazz musicians somehow, you don't think about it. It just happens, and let it happen. If you're relaxed and comfortable with yourself and on the set, then it can happen. And they're glorious times, when you just know whatever you did, it might be this or it might be that, but it was true.
True.
It was the truth. It was organic, and you just know, and you just know when you get it wrong, which you do frequently. Look, bong, whoops. Can I go again?
It's kind of this kind of leads on from that. It's kind of like how important is listening to you?
It's crucial. The business of when I used to do amateur dramatics when I was a kid, I'd stand there. Somebody else would be talking, everyone would go like that, and then their line would come, and up they go. But in life, we're all listening to each other, all responding to each other's, all this stuff happening. So, listening, reacting. All that, it's the nuts and bolts, the business of being a good actor. If you don't listen, then you can't do it. And sometimes when I used to do a bit directing, I used to say to an actor, just to wake everyone up, I'd whisper and say, this time instead of saying no, say yes. Just see what he does. And the ones that are awake respond accordingly. And the ones that are asleep respond as if they just said no and not yes. And, that's the idea, is to wake up everyone up. So that's the...
Yeah, I wouldn't even bother asking that. I was going to ask you about responding in a given moment to a given response, but that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
In this clip, this is a great clip, you managed to make it look like you're doing very little here. And you expressed in another interview with The Big Issue that you'd like to be more still in your acting. What do you think? What do you do when you're doing little or being still? Because you're not doing nothing.
Yeah. The thing of wishing I was stiller. When I look back on my early work when I was a kid, in Quadrophenia, I was older than a kid, but all the same. I'm like, I think keep still, And it was partly exuberance, and it was partly because I was less than comfortable on a film set when I was younger.
The character was on drugs as well, pretty much.
And the character was stoned out of his box all the time. On blues. And, but, you know, the thing of just looking into somebody's face and listening to what they're saying without planning a response, you know, is the business of acting. It's the same answers to before, really. I mean, I don't know if I was doing a lot or a little. I mean, there was stuff going through the back of my mind like you wouldn't believe. But of course, this was a man who wanted to look as if he was in control of the situation, to look as if he was this man's equal. And so that's the game that was being played. And that was the motivating factor in whatever I was doing.
Yeah, no, that's because, I mean, with some of the other actors, I won't name names, when they do nothing, they're doing nothing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you must see it yourself. You know, you watch them and go, you're doing that doing nothing thing, and you are actually doing nothing.
Yes.
That's your tactic. That's a very bad tactic.
Yeah, it's not an affectation. It's a thing. I mean, it's interesting that because this was the first episode of this turned into this tremendously successful series, and the great detective, you know, who can deduce all this stuff. But what happens? He doesn't catch this guy. He's scrabbling around, and this guy comes to him and says, "Excuse me, I did it, and now I'm going to do it to you." And he takes him away, and they have this scene. And he's just about to swallow the pill when Martin Freeman comes in and shoots him. Otherwise, he'd be dead, and we'd have no Sherlock Holmes playing to 27 billion people in China.
Okay, Phil, this is the last question. I think we've got time for another clip, or are we?
No, I think this
is the last question. Okay.
And then we'll open it out to the floor.
We're
chomping at the bit by now.
Yeah, I bet there. Your character, we're going back to the beginning, kind of full circle, because we talked about backstory at the beginning. So, your character is a criminal whose backstory is revealed in this scene. How did you engage with the backstory that emerges in the script, and how important is the backstory to your performance of this character?
Well, the backstories are always important.
Yeah.
Always important. I mean, sometimes I do more work on the backstory than others.
Yeah, I was going to answer that.
And this was not a story in which I did a great deal of backstory research. My feeling was that this man was mentally ill, and that he had a compulsion to impose himself on his victims, and he's telling himself that he's not killing them, that it's a game, and he's winning it because he's cleverer than them. But I think he was a monstrous psychopath. But I wanted to play him as if he was a really nice guy. So I did a sort of chirpy sort of accent, Cockney, and he smiled a lot and was nice. "Hello, Mr. Holmes, come in." He said, I'll tell you, there's a scene when he persuades him to go in a cab, and he says, "You call the cops if you like, you know, take me down." He said, "But you're not going to do that." And he says, "Why is that?" He says, "Because I didn't kill them people." He said, "I talked to them and they killed themselves. And if you don't come with me, I'm not going to tell you what I said." And he dangles it in front of Sherlock Holmes. And it's very clever, you know, because he knows that Sherlock Holmes will not be able to resist finding out. And so, you know, it was fun. It was a glorious piece of nonsense, really.
Sorry, just one tiny thing. What do you do when there is no backstory in a script or a rehearsal process?
Make one up.
Yeah, simple as that.
I mean, it's not something you discuss with anyone. I don't go up to the director and say, "Excuse me, I think, you know, he had a bad experience when he was 13 or all that." No one's interested, you know. It's just for me. Because I think, you know, if you're playing a character in a drama and you can believe in the character outside of the drama, you know, I always think, you know, where's he going on his holidays? You know, what's his favourite pop group? Has he ever heard of Beethoven? All those questions, you know, everything is just adding to the stuff. So when you come to act it, You forget all about that stuff, but it's all sort of there, swimming around inside you. What damage can it do? By just adding all this stuff to make it as rich and complicated as you possibly can. It just seems to me a no-brainer. Why not? If you've got the time, what else am I going to do?